You are interested in the unusual, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
We'll go to Q&A. Yes, sir.
Knowing the potential of genetic engineering, you foresee some researcher someday creating a gray that looked like an alien?
In the year 2000. Well, I mean, obviously we're in speculative land. If I have to go there, and apparently you're forcing me to, the latest high-tech news is that they're trying to figure out a way to store information in our DNA. Okay, I know you'll be totally into that. So I could see them wanting to create some kind of diminutive being with a large head and a large brain for storage capacity. You know, the old story, the old sci-fi, Johnny Mnemonic played with that idea of storing information in our brain. I think if we did something like that, though, it would probably be a much more robust being that could perform physical labor, you know, and not some kind of shriveled up little guy. But again, who knows? Velma, I know, yes.
Did you see a pretty clear continuum or relationship to mythological figures like leprechauns, other mythological creatures?
That is an excellent point, yes. So yes, in all kinds of mythologies, you do have experiences with strange little beings. Of various sorts, some of who are quite capricious, you know, the Trickster. That definitely seems to be a theme that runs through this whole entire thing, is the Trickster theme, which is that just when you think you got to figure it out, they pull a fast one on you and go in another direction, or it's pretty obvious that they are not who they first claimed to be, now they're claiming something else, and when you think you get your head around that, then they claim something else. Philip K. Dick actually had precisely that sort of experience, if you know about his concept of Valis. I really don't want to sidetrack into that, but that is very much what he realized was happening to him, was this kind of trickster attitude. The issue is, it's almost too easy to get it into your head to then look through ancient mythologies or legends or religions and all of a sudden start tying things together that really aren't tied together. It's just really tricky, is what I'm saying. Because it's easy, look, if you look at the TV show Ancient Aliens, right? It's unfortunately notorious for just tying together things that are unrelated, and it's usually by tweaking this or that fact and generically referring to this phenomena and that one, and all of a sudden, bada bing, aliens. You know, so there is a very fascinating aspect to that. But in my mind, we need to slow down and really think about whether we are able to tie certain things together like that. But again, yeah, these sorts of experiences have been reported in one way or another for millennia, for sure. Okay, I think you have a follow-up. We'll go to you in a second.
Well, it's another question.
Okay.
So let it
Okay, yes, sir.
How about going the other way to the little people? How about the very large people? There's actually been bones found and skeletons of people that are 10, 12, 14, 15 feet high. You know, so you've got the full range as far as size goes. It doesn't necessarily have to be little people. In our history, various places, various cultures have got stories of people that lived in the past that were monsters, you know, 12 fingers, 12 toes, that kind of stuff. Right?
Very interesting point, and part of the reason why that's part of what makes this so difficult is there's such a wide range of phenomena. It's almost overwhelming. Now, if I may point out, so one of my books is What Does the Bible Say About Angels? And this is actually part of a series. I just published the one about demons last week. One of them is going to be about giants and Nephilim. Okay, so one problem is what actually has been found. Okay, because what happens, for instance, today is you get a news report of some kind of new scientific discovery. It's all over the internet. It's all over the newspapers, and then with much less fanfare, maybe a couple of years down the line, where the hard research had actually been done and conclusions have been reached, and actually it wasn't all that. It wasn't all that hype. It's actually much simpler and not a big deal, and you barely hear about that. So unfortunately, that is part of what has happened with many of these accounts. I personally chronicled a lot of old newspaper accounts from the 1800s and early 1900s that claimed that all these gigantic human bones were found. The problem is, what did they actually find? Now, if you talk about myth and legend, oh yeah, there's a lot of ancient myth and legends, even here Native Americans, that claim that there were what? Well, to me, the word giant is problematic only because it's generic, right? It definitely means taller than average, but how much taller? Well, then you need to define how much taller than average. Okay, so to me the word giant is not very useful, but fine, there's people who have measured these bones and they told us exactly how big they were. What happens when you read the ancient newspapers is they're literally just reports. Hey, what did you find? I found these bones. How big were they? Oh, I measured them, they're this big. What do you think they are? Here's what I think they are. What did the scientists who actually checked them out later have to say about them? Who knows where that news report is? There probably wasn't one. So again, that is another topic that is complicated by the various categories. It is a fact that some of those turned out to be some kind of pachyderm, mastodon, a mammoth, this and that. Not discounting that there have been unusually tall people. Obviously there are. Go to Africa. You look at the Ethiopians, look at the pygmies. There you go.
Sure.
Pygmies average what? Males 4'11". Ethiopians 6 feet or taller. So anyhow, there's a researcher who talked about how, well, let's say you go back a few hundred years or a few thousand and you found these gigantic bones. What would you do? What would you make of them? Well, you'd likely lay them down on the floor, flat surface, and you'd lay them out in a basic humanoid shape. Why not? Because that's what you know. And then you'd say, well, this could very well be a giant human being. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And then she talks about how, let's say you found some kind of pachyderm, right? Again, elephant, mastodon, mammoth, who knows. The skull would contain a huge hole in the center for the trunk, but of course the trunk is long gone. But you stick it there, and it's a human form, so there you have a story of a cyclops. Mm-hmm. And what I end up thinking is, wow, we're still doing the same kind of thing today, right? If you look at the skeleton of Lucy, how is it shown to you? Laying flat on the table. And it looks perfectly upright, so therefore, it walked around just like one of us. Well, not when you actually try to put the pieces together the way it was, and it's not what it appears to be. But anyhow, so that's just to say, this is another issue you have to think about at many different levels. Yes, ma'am. The follow-up, or the different question.
Has anybody theorized a common psychology of believers and experiencers?
Just this past week, I was reading a paper that was attempting to give a breakdown, more along the lines of sociology. So whether that has been accomplished, I don't know off the top of my head.
Or did you have observations, or do you have opinions about that you can share with us?
See, again, my problem is that breaking this down into categories actually makes it a lot more difficult for me. Because I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. Experiences were what? With hallucinations, with nightmares, with mind control, with I was abused, and the way that I psychologically dealt with it is to tell myself a story. I mean, I don't even know. But to me, the fact that a correlation with the occult seems to be virtually ever present with at least the majority of the phenomena is very telling and very unexpected. Because like I said, you're reading the story along and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. It's like, wait a minute. How does that connect to the other? Yeah, so, sorry, I don't actually have a citation for you. Yes, anyone else?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And Native American culture, have you done any research as far as any kind of alien interactions? And is there any research out there?
Definitely. I believe it was last year, a documentary was released. Oh, it was called maybe Aliens in the Reservation.
Yeah. Because I noticed you mentioned Skinwalkers, and that's
Right. Oh yes, definitely.
Exactly. That's something.
Definitely. In fact, I'll tell you a great story in just a second. Yes, the issue is when you watch a documentary about interviews with Native Americans who have had experiences like these, they're just like the stories anybody else would tell, you know? I kind of saw something, I don't know what it was, or maybe I had an experience, or it's really all the same stuff. But yeah, there are certainly ancient Native American tales of dealing with star people and what have you. So, anybody aware of the TV show The Office? Okay, so Dwight says, I shot a werewolf once, but by the time I got to it, it had turned back into my neighbor's dog. Okay, so just this past week, someone online contacted me and said, oh, I saw a Skinwalker. Wow, tell me about that, you know? And he says, yeah, I was driving along with my dad and he hit a black dog. And then when we stopped the car and went back to see how badly it would hurt it, it was gone. That's the whole story. Okay, so I don't mean that as a way of poking fun, but that, you know, he's telling me he saw a Skinwalker, and I could jump to all these conclusions about it and go relate it to other people, and all of a sudden we got this story, but well, wait a minute, I want you to actually tell me about it. Oh, you hit a dog, and then obviously it just walked away because it wasn't that badly hurt. I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't know what possessed him to take this gigantic leap to a conclusion, is my point. Yes?
And you can get into that phenomenon of what they call crop circles. And the stuff you can only see from space, and these huge birds, South America and all that. I mean, there's some fascinating stuff along that. That's a whole category in itself.
It is. It is a category with more subcategories under it.
Yeah.
Because you do have what appear to be crop circles that appear literally very quickly and have very odd things about them, but then you have obvious hoaxers too, and that's so.
That one especially has had some hoaxes, but some of the big ones, especially in South America.
Yeah, in Peru.
In Peru, and they've been there for maybe even thousands of years. I mean, some of them are phenomenal.
Yes.
Nazca, yes. Nazca lines, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
One. Go into it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your take on people who believe that there are spirit guides? That they empty themselves and then they have these spirits that guide their lives. Do you think that could be like an indication of an alien abduction?
It's a great question because, again, it touches on the issue of just what are we talking about and just what are we dealing with. Is a spirit guide a spirit? What is a spirit? Could it be an alien? What's an alien? That's how crazy it gets.
Well, I'm just thinking of like in India where, you know, there's people that want to be empty so that the spirit guides can take over and help them, to guide their lives. So
Right.
I'm just thinking, since you're talking about the occult, I'm trying to make a connection between people trying to reach into that realm. Does it happen? Is it real?
Well, my particular personal take on it would be that when you are opening yourself and inviting who knows what into you, something will inevitably answer.
Yeah.
And we'll be more than glad
May
to
not
come
be
on
what
in.
you want.
Go to this, careful what you wish for. You might just get it.
Yeah.
And so unless you have a very strong support system behind you to know how to discern what's going on, you could consider yourself as having very benevolent spirit guides, but just exactly to what are they guiding you, right? I mean, Barbara Marciniak to me is a prime example, because I heard her being interviewed a dozen years after she had been dealing with these Pleiades. She's been dealing with them a dozen years, and she was specifically asked, who are they? She said, I don't know. To me, that was just shocking. I mean, just absolutely shocking to me, that she's had this relationship with these beings and is spreading their message for a dozen years. And when she's blank asked, who are they? She literally said, I don't know. So what are we talking about there? I mean, sure, she's well known. She's obviously earned a good living off of, pretending they're speaking through her, sounding like some bad James Bond villain, with a really bad British accent or whatever. But where is she going, and what has come of her life when she's devoted to allowing these things to spread their message, and with her not even knowing who they are? Yes, ma'am.
What percentage of the experiences are malevolent, and what percent is like with a positive message about what we need to do better?
Do you know how many statistics are? She knows where I'm going. 64% of all statistics are incorrect.
Roughly.
You know that. No, I certainly couldn't quote you a statistic. But again, the issue is with the perception, right? So you take somebody like Strieber, who, whether the government was doing it to him, whether demons were doing it, who knows? But his experience had been horrendously terrifying, okay? And we're talking about not just mental, but also physical abuse, right? But then he, inevitably, what happens with a lot of these people is battered Stockholm wife syndrome, if I may put it that way. That he ends up thinking, oh, well, sure, they put me through a horrendously terrifying experiences mentally and physically. But wow, now I really see the light, Now I realize it was just all for the better good. And so that definitely ends up happening, that you have this reaction to the negative experiences that they are turned into, well, I might as well kind of go with it, and they're not doing anything wrong. They were just trying to get me out, whatever kind of, okay, let me put it this way. A lot of that stuff breaks down to what is known as mystical alchemy, the concept of which is that you break a person down, you break down their personality, and you rebuild them in your own image. Okay, and that goes for everything from demonology to mind control experiments. It's all the same. It's all taking a person, breaking them, and then rebuilding them. It's all the same. That's definitely a big part of the phenomena, regardless of which category or subcategory you're in. Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone behind the bookshelves over there? Don't overread. Yes, ma'am.
You've written a lot of books on this subject. I'm just wondering what motivated you. I mean,
Have you had any personal experience that
Well-
you're too shy to talk about? Or, I mean, that's a lot of,
Well, the book on this issue is just the one.
right,
Okay, these are kind of a periphery. So, for instance, because some people take the view that it has to do with angels and demons, and of course, I do believe some of it has something to do with that. Again, under one of the categories. So, therefore, what does the Bible say about angels? And then, like the gentleman was mentioning, the issue of giants, that's generally derived from texts such as Genesis 6. So, were they angels or not? A lot of people will appeal to the apocryphal book of Enoch, so there's a book about that. And this one, wow. Can I admit something to you? Let's see. This is over 500 pages, and all I wrote is a one-page intro. That's all I actually wrote, because this is the paranormal and early Jewish and Christian commentaries, over a millennium's worth of comments on angels, cherubim, seraphim, Satan, the devil, demons, serpent, and the dragon. Okay, so this is just me conducting the research and what the 1 millennia worth of commentators have to say about those issues. Now, the part of what I began this talk with was just discussing that around 6th grade is when I started reading about UFOs and aliens. That just really interested me. Along with just the mysteries of the world, you know, all the weird stuff, Bigfoot, weird natural phenomena, fish falling out of the sky, all this kind of crazy stuff that you hear about. That fascinated me as a kid, so that's why I've kind of, well, I could actually go back a step and point out that, so in the country where I was born, we didn't have the teeth mice. I have what I call conceptual dyslexia. Sometimes I just mix up concept, not just letters and numbers.
what country were you born?
Argentina. Okay, so there we didn't have the tooth fairy. We had los ratoncitos. We had the teeth mice. We had like the tooth fairy knockoff, you know. Nice concept, by the way. Hey, kid, when you sleep at night, vermin are going to run under your pillow and whatever. So anyhow, one day when I was younger than 10, I found out that wasn't true. It was my parents leaving the money, whatever, all right? So I realized, wow, my parents deceived me. And it really, really shocked me. And I can honestly say that is when I became a skeptic. Now, I know a lot of people that call themselves skeptics, but they're really cynics. To me, a skeptic says, I won't believe until, and a cynic says, I won't believe, period. Okay, so I consider myself a true and honest skeptic. It doesn't mean my mind is closed. It means that I want to know and I want to research and I want to figure it out. And so that's part of why when I encountered these great mysteries of the world, I think that's kind of what drew me to it, and this lifelong pursuit to figure out what is actually the truth. And so that's why I've kind of kept tabs on this subject all these years. Again, it's not like I could give you a dissertation on every single claim of alien and UFO, because it's a massive amount of material, just absolutely overwhelming. But so this was my attempt at just giving you a really, really wide scope of what is involved in these phenomena. So no, I can't say I've really had any kind of experiences besides seeing something in the sky and not knowing what it was. You know.
Did you ever determine what that tube was?
No.
Were they playing around with holograms, or what was going on? You don't know?
No.
Where was this at?
It was outside of a building at a nationally relevant laboratory.
That's why I wanted to ask you.
That's
Which
why we
laboratory were you thinking of?
The thing is, the people who worked in this particular building do deal with craft.
Yeah.
And none of, they didn't, what's that? I don't know. Now, I tell you this, it's unfortunate. If I would have actually turned my head a minute or two earlier, I literally could have jumped up and grabbed it. It was that close. It was really that close.
Should have done it, see what would happen.
I don't know. For all I know, a couple of the guys there would have said, what are you messing with our experiment for? We're sending this up to check the wind. Who knows? I'm just saying, it's something and I don't know what it was. And apparently, nobody I talked to anyway did either.
Have you ever researched Dulce or interior rituals?
Not really. I haven't really bothered to deal with all these because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've heard a million claims about Dulce and about Roswell and about the DUMBs, right, the deep underground military bases. And unfortunately, to me, it's just way too frustrating to hear everybody with their own little take on it. And, oh, I used to work there and I had access to super duper triple dog dare secret stuff. And you won't find my names in their registers because that's how secretive it was. But believe me, that stuff is just way too frustrating for me to lead through that kind of stuff. Claim upon claim upon claim, and that's how it is. Or maybe it's not. Maybe someone has a true story out there, but to dig that out of all the people trying to make a name for themselves by claiming all that stuff is too much. I think I'm getting the...
I just wanted to say thank you and enjoyed it. And I want to have time to sign books.
Yes.
So if you have purchased a book and you want to get it signed, I think this would be a good time. And I think, if you can stay a little bit longer and just have smallish
Oh yes,
conversations.
I will be
that would
around for a
great.
while, and I thank you all so very much. This has been really fascinating for me.